So hi guys, welcome again. How to start your online startup. Today is a very important day. I think this is our real beginning to marketing your online venture. Okay. Today's topic is search engine optimization, SEO. All of you heard of that topic? Yes. Yes? A lot of people talk about it. Whenever you talk about web, the first thing that everybody mentions is SEO, correct? So, can somebody tell me what SEO means?
Search engine optimization.
I already said that. Now, let's talk about something else. What does it do?
So whenever somebody searches for particular words on Google, so my website should come in the first 10 websites. So first list actually.
Sure. So it's basically you have a goal to get your website up in top search engine listings, correct? So what we're going to do is today, the module is dedicated to that. It's a very intensive module, so please follow through. There are a lot of technical terms. Ask me if you don't know the technical term. Okay, I try to define every technical term there is, but sometimes I also forget because I remember the terms. So when we go through it, let me know. All right, let's start off by defining what the technical definition of SEO is. I know you already described it. So it's the practice of improving and promoting your website to increase the number of visitors. Very simple. What is our ultimate goal? Get more people on our website, correct? So that's what SEO does for you, okay? It has many aspects, words on your page, which is your content, right? Links on your web, right? All of that involves SEO. We all know there are three main search engines in the world. Can you guys name the three main search engines in the world?
It's Google, Bing, and Yahoo.
Great. So again, there are three main search engines in the world, right? We all heard of Google, right? That's what just mentioned was, right? Google, everybody knows. Because you know what? More than 90% of world's traffic, and we'll have a number later on in one of the slides, goes through Google. Okay? So we all know that. Then there is Bing, which is from Microsoft, right? And then there's Yahoo search. Again, these two hardly compromise of what, 5 or 7% of the total market, okay? But you know what? Those are the three out there. Now, there's several factors to search engine optimization, and we're going to talk about each one of these factors. It ranges from traffic, optimization of your website, the architecture of your website, and this is one thing that most people don't pay attention to, the technical architecture of your website, okay? Then the content on the website, the keywords, and a lot more, okay? And we're going to go through each one of these, right? Now here, this is how the search listings look like, right? When you put a keyword in Google, this is what comes up, and it shows you in different form factors. And most of the time, right, what the top most listings are paid, okay? And then come your organic listings, which is where SEO drives, right? What Google has done is that most of the prime listings on the top, on the right, are all paid. And we're going to be talking about that in our next module, which is search engine marketing, okay? But this module is about the organic results, which come a little bit underneath, maybe 2 or 3 results later, okay? So if you look at this, you see the topmost is your Google Shopping, okay? Then come where it says in yellow ads. Those are through search engine marketing. And then the rest of it are through your organic search, which is through search engine optimization, which what we will be talking about. Clear? We know how the positioning happens. So even though you want to be number 1, you realistically cannot be without paying for it. You can be number 3 at best. Probably not even that in some cases.
Paid one are top listings.
Yes.
So there are so many people are paying for their website to be listed in the top. So what is how the criteria will be that it will come in the top of each search?
So again, we're going to be talking in detail in our next module, search engine marketing, but it's basically by how much you bid. Who bids more, right? So if somebody else, if you're bidding, let's say 100 rupees, and you're on top, and somebody comes and bids 105, then they'll get on top. Google works pretty much on bidding system. Not just Google, but most advertising places now work on bidding. You can't just say that I want top. No, it has to be, do you pay for it? And every keyword, there's a different bid. So it's not consistent that it's 100 rupees. It could be 20, it could be 1,000, it could be 1,500. Okay? In the US during Christmas, there are keywords that range about $100 to be on the top position. Now you're talking about 6,600 rupees a click. Okay? So it all depends on how much you're willing to bid. Okay? Coming back, there are about 60 trillion individual pages that have been indexed in Google. 60 trillion. I don't even know how many zeros that is.
12.
Who said 12? I'm sure he's a finance person. Says 12 zeros.
Science.
Science, same thing. All math related, zeros and ones, right? 60 trillion individual pages. So something we need to know, because we want to be top of Google search, but remember, you're competing against 60 trillion other pages. Not millions and billions, but trillions of them. And did you know there are about 200 factors that Google will rate you on or rank you on? Okay, there are about 200 of them. What most places don't tell you is that in each one of these factors, there are about 50 variations. So realistically, there are about 10,000 factors that they will rank you on. Let's look at how Google actually works. Okay, so you heard of things called web crawlers? Yes? So these are web crawlers. Basically, they're small programs, right, that go out there and crawl each website. And the crawlers for Google are called Google bots. You'll hear this term. Like robots, they're called Google bots. And what they do is they go to every web page in the world, every web page, and they'll crawl it. That's the first step, right? That's how they're going about and building an index, right? So there are actually millions of computers that are actually doing the crawling. By the way, in Google, there are millions of them that go out there and crawl and gather the index, the data. So when you put your page out there, you'll see that at some day, some Google bot will come, it'll read the page, and there's actually millions of them out there. Okay? And they're continuously, day and night, 24 hours a day, they're crawling. One page to another, another page to another. Then what happens is how does Google know how often to crawl your site?
Google is crawling based on the page rank.
Okay.
It is like if your page rank is higher side, like you say 9 or 8, then they'll often crawl your page. And if your page rank is a lesser side, like 0 or 1, then they may crawl in a month or 15 days.
Okay, but why did your page get to 8 or 9? So the question comes down to what is the basic? I understand once you get to 8 or 9, they crawl you more often. But how did you get to 8 or 9?
It will depends on the keyword, backlinks, and other depends on the authenticity, credibility
Okay.
of content.
Okay.
So many, as you say, is 200 factors are depending on the page rank.
Okay. It all starts with content. That's why we study content strategy before we get into marketing, and especially into SEO. More often and more relative content you are generating, more often Google will start to come back to you. Okay? Because what happens is, how does Google know what your page rank is? When you begin, it doesn't know. It still needs time. So how does it know to come back? It says, look, are they updating content often enough? Are they creating relative content? Okay? And all of that kind of stuff. Then it knows how to come back. What is crawling? Basically, it kind of also drives into our fourth point, right? What the Google bots do, they somehow, through another website that you are on or whatever, they end up on one of your pages. they read that page. They read every link on that page also. Okay? Once they read all those links, they will store it. And they will make sure they go back to every link. Okay? That's crawling. So basically, they start one place and they go back to every single link that is on your website. So it's like a spider. Basically, the whole term came from the spider, right? It has a web and it crawls. Okay? There's permutation combinations, but it knows, right? Because it's crawling the whole thing. That's how Google does it. It just finds links and keeps on crawling and keeps on indexing. Okay? So tomorrow, if you add a new web page and you put a link of it somewhere, Google will find it. Okay? So, like it says in step 4, they read all the links and ensure that they also crawl these links. Okay? And then in step 5, they store all of these pages in a Google index. Right? There's an index database, 60 whatever trillion that it is, right? It stores it there. Every single web page, by the way, in the world is in that index. Okay? Do you also know that not only whatever current pages it has, it keeps a history. It keeps a history from the day that first Google ended up on your site, back to whatever time you can think of. You can actually go back. There's an archive in Google. You can actually see archives of your pages. Okay? So it's not just current, but it does it across all of history. Okay? So then what happens? You come in. Let's say any of you go to Google search and you type your query, right? Whatever query you have. Okay? Now, what Google will do is based on those 200 times 50, it will match your query to all the pages that have been indexed and give you results. Got it? In the same time, Google also generates, when you see the results, there's a short description it shows you. So Google, by the way, does not restrict to only using a description you tell it. It can decide to put a new description there if it thinks that is what makes sense. Okay? So if Google believes that your description is not valid, they can actually replace a short description of their own. Okay? And then again, these results, like we know, are shown by those 200 plus factors to the user. Is that clear what the process works like? Yeah? Are we sure? So, before I move to the next slide, do you know how fast Google does this? How fast do they show you a search result?
Usually in the 10s or 20s of milliseconds.
Okay, cool. Anybody else have a different view, or everybody agrees?
Whenever we search something, they put a description that this search was brought to you in 0.015 seconds.
Correct, correct.
Whatever time it takes, they always mention it.
It takes 1/8 of a second. 1/8 of a second. That's faster than I can even say it. Right? That's how fast Google serves results back to you. Okay? So those trillions and trillions of pages indexed over millions and millions of computers takes only that much time to show you. Okay? Amazing. They've built something that we can't even fathom. Right? Right? We wait for minutes at times sometimes to open our web pages. But Google has already done its thing multiple times by then. Okay? So why are we talking about SEO, by the way? What is the reason that we want to talk about SEO? Or why is the SEO ranking so important? Do you know there are about 55,000 Google searches per second? So just like we just said, in 1 sec, 55,000 searches globally on Google. Okay? There are 3.5 billion searches per day. Okay? Approximating to about 1.2 trillion searches per year. So that's why SEO is so important. People are going to Google for everything. Not just Google, let's assume Google holds 90, 92% of the traffic, but even the 5, 7 other percent, people are on these search engines all the time. With a raise of hand, can I see how many people, when you want to go to a particular website, you actually don't even type the URL, you just type it in Google? Right? That's more than 70% of you, and I'm the same way. Even to go to Google, I just type it in search. They've made us so used to Google search. Right? There's a word, Googling. Come on. They've actually made us this way. So 55,000 searches per second, 3.5 billion per day, 1.2 trillion per year is not a big deal. And this is growing tremendously, by the way. This is not slowing down. Okay? This is actually growing leaps and bounds. So it's very important to be on the search engines because that's where people are going. That's where your customers are going to go. Okay? Now, another thing. Another reason why search engine optimization ranking is so important. 93% of online and mobile organic traffic goes through Google or through our search engines. Do you know that? 93% of online and mobile organic traffic goes through search engines. It is important to be there because otherwise you're only targeting 7% if you're not on the search engines. Okay? Do you know that 75% of the people never scroll beyond the first page? So being on the second, third, well, second, you still have a chance. Being beyond the second page in Google, Google or any search engine, it actually does not even matter that you exist because the percentage is so small. Next one, 50% of people never go beyond the first 3 results. 50%. It's said that by the time people are done with the second page, more than 90% are done. Only 10% will even think of going beyond the second page. Okay? So it's not about only being in Google. It's not only being about being in Bing or Yahoo. It's about, can I be on the first page? Because that's where it all counts. After that, it's actually, if your SEO guy is telling you you're on page 3, you say, yeah, that's good, but when do I get to page 1? Because that's where my traffic is going to come. My traffic is not going to come from page 3 or page 15 or 20 or 25. It's great that you see a progress. You start with page 25 or 40 or 100 or whatever, and then move towards your top pages. But you know what? Your conversions will never happen unless you're on the first or second page at most. And I mean, the last number says 50% don't even go beyond the first 3 results, which in most cases are paid results. So even if you're first of organic, you're only still going to receive 50% of the traffic. Okay? So this is why SEO is so important for all of us. So as a business, what do you do? What is your strategy behind SEO? Right? How are you going to approach this subject? Right? Like everything else, like every other strategy. First, define your goals and objectives. Very important. What are you trying to do? Step 2, identify your audience segments. Right? Who's your audience? Okay? And step 3, which I am sure most people don't do, understand your competition. Because when it comes to search engine optimization, competition is just a large factor as anything else. Because you know what? To get that position, you have to beat out your competition in search engine optimization. Right? Because if you want top 1, you've got to beat out some millions of them to get to number 1 position. So not only is it about you knowing your goal, knowing your audience, but understand your competitors. Okay? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? What can you improve on? That'll probably play a very large role in you getting a good ranking in Google or Bing or Yahoo. And by the way, through the whole module, I'm going to talk about Google. Because realistically, let me concentrate on the 92% of it. Okay? You want to talk about MSN and MSN's Bing and Yahoo? You know what? Great. But ultimately, they're driving 5-7% of the traffic. For me, I'll concentrate on the other two. And basically, the techniques are the same, somewhat similar. Okay? So we'll concentrate on Google most of the time. So everybody understands what our step 1, 2, and 3 of the strategy are? Very clear. Define your goals and objectives. Define your audience. Make sure you study your competition. And you know what? Sounds very simple. But the strategy actually is this complex. And believe me, this is not the full strategy. All this are the prerequisites. Prerequisites, meaning before you even begin, these are the different types of audits that you need to perform, either through experts or through tools. I mean, let me just describe a few of them, right? It talks about competition analysis, right? Keyword research and analysis. It talks about spam analysis, a whole bunch of them. Okay? These are audits you need to do before you even begin. Because the next set of steps that I'm going to show you are all going to depend on what these audits say. Right? What is your content like? What is your links like? What is your traffic like? All of that plays a big role. And again, I know that most of you will say that I hire kar lunga. I'll just hire an agency. I'll tell them to do it. You know what? If they could do it, they would actually tell you all the steps I'm going to tell you. Okay? And in most cases, my money is that they will not even know that there are, they'll tell you, sir, 200 factor hain, main kya karoon? Kar rahe hain hum work. But they forget 200 into 50 is 10,000 factors actually. And even then, they'll concentrate on the top 5. And uske beyond, they won't look at. And we'll today probably look at some 30 or 40 different factors just because I want you to know what it looks like. Okay? Everybody with me still? Yes. Okay? And by the way, very important for you to know yourself. Okay? When you sit down, let's say your business is growing, you want more organic growth, the first thing you're going to do is to look at SEO and say, okay, how can I get my SEO to be better? Most large corporations have been spending huge amount of money on SEO because otherwise they would have to pay for it. Okay? Give you one brief example before we move forward. I told you we've been in jewelry online for a while. Okay? There was a year and a half that we were rated number 1 for at least 15 or 20 keywords that were top keywords. Okay? Value, add value in those days of number 1 position for those keywords for us was $3.5 million a year. I would have to spend $3.5 million a year to have that position if I paid for it. Okay? SEO gives you that position for very little money.
So when you pay for the Google ads, for the at least for the top listing, the payment is per click or a set monthly fee or yearly fee? What is it?
So we're going to get into this again, like I said, in the next module. It's actually per click or per action. There are 2 different types of payments that they have. It could be on clicks, it could be on actions, and then there's another thing called impressions. Okay? So 3 ways that you pay them for, and we'll discuss it much more detail because then you'll understand what the difference between each one of them is. So just kind of reiterating that, listen, SEO, we were able to have a yearly almost save $3.5 million a year in ad spend just by being good in SEO. Okay? Unluckily and luckily, whatever for others, luckily for us, unluckily, Google changes its algorithms often. And as such, if you don't keep up, you fall. Okay? One such major update made us fall considerably. Okay? We're still in top 2, 3, 5, and most places, but we're no more number 1 in most. Okay? There are others that have become, and we'll talk about what the different factors are. Besides doing all the audits, there are going to be a whole bunch of factors that we'll have to look at. We'll have to look at some things called on-site optimization factors, off-site optimization factors, or external influences, as you call them. Okay? And we're going to look at the keywords, because like somebody said, our ranking also depends on what keywords we want to choose. Because depending on how competitive that keyword is, your rank will be different. Okay? And again, I want to make sure everybody understands, if you're looking to be online, if you're looking to realistically make a mark in the online space, you will have to be the best at SEO. Doesn't matter what money you have in your pocket. I'm telling you. If you're the best at SEO, you will make hell lot of money because you're not spending on advertising. Okay? Because otherwise, you're going to empty all your budgets on just advertising. And we'll talk about it. I mean, advertising is a good way also to add more traffic. Or maybe initially, because initially SEO does take time. It takes 6 months, 9 months, maybe more. So you want to make sure. Now, all of these factors, I know that there's a lot of them here. And again, I'm not describing in this chart, but as we go through everything, I'll describe it. But you should know them. Okay? And what I've done, and when we get to there, I'll tell you, when I talk about each factor later, I've actually even given it an importance, how important it is, so that you know which to concentrate on first and which not. Okay? Now, you know, when Nayan was talking about e-com and history and etc., he mentioned a word called HTML, right? So HTML is what?
Hypertext markup.
Okay, great. So hypertext markup language is what browsers understand, correct? Now, there's two other languages that they understand. One is called CSS, which are actually cascading style sheets. This is how today you get the look and feel, the structure of that page. Okay? And then something called JavaScript, which is client-side coding. Okay? I won't get into what exactly that is. But you have to understand that Google also will be looking at these three things when they look at your web page. Okay? Not only HTML, but they'll be looking at your CSS files, and they'll be looking at your JavaScript files as well. So just so that everybody understands what are the technologies behind it, the latest version of HTML is, I think, 5. Latest version of CSS is 3. JavaScript, I actually don't remember what the latest version is right now. But sorry?
Last I checked, it was something 8.1.
Okay, so maybe JavaScript 8 or so. But anyway, just know this. Okay? The other is, the reason I'm putting this, it does help to be on the latest technology in your rankings. Okay, it does help. There is a certain rank that you get based on that. Just for the guys that don't know these three things, this is an example of what an HTML, the first one is what an HTML looks like. The center is what a CSS looks like. And on the right-hand side is what a JavaScript looks like. Just so that you can even if you ever looked at these somewhere, you would recognize what they are. Just information, nothing more than that. Okay, and these are just samples, nothing, not real code or anything. All right, so let's get started with what the factors are, right? Like we talked about on-page factors, off-page factors, as well as what the violations are. Because I think most people talk about how to get your ranking up. And what they don't talk about is what are the different violations which can get the ranking down. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Now first, let's define what each one of these things is, right? I keep on saying on-page, off-page, violation, whatever, right? What does on-page actually mean? Okay, so on-page are basically things that the webmaster or you control. Okay, these are in your control, right? This can be what type of content that you're publishing. Okay, what are the different types of HTML tags, okay, or clues that you're providing to the search engine. Okay, how does your site architecture look? Again, things that you control. It's in you, meaning you as a business can control. Okay, is that clear? Because then the next set of things will make sense to you. Okay. What are off-page? Okay, these are things you do not directly control yourself. Very simply. Okay, search engines have started relying on this because they believe that they can know more about you by looking at off-page factors. Okay, usually, earlier days it didn't used to be this way. Earlier days it was all on-page kind of stuff. Then search engines realized that on-page you can still manipulate them, but off-page is where they really find out about you. Okay, so they're going to go out and look at all the off-page factors as well. Okay. Now, finally, what are violations or penalties? These are things, we heard of this word spam, right? So if you try to spam a search engine, they're going to create a violation, and you're going to get penalized for it. Then there's things called black hat techniques. Okay, these are techniques where you try to tell the search engine something else versus doing something else. Okay, they are also considered bad, and you get penalized for it. Okay, and we're going to be talking about these things. Okay, for the ones that feel that, listen, it's okay, it's a plus minus, it's not. A lot of times these kinds of violations will get you kicked out. Okay, and today, maybe right before lunch, I'll give an example of how to get kicked out. Okay, a real life example. Okay, so again, this is how things are going to look. We're going to start off with a search, right? Again, just a reference, right? Then there are going to be a lot of on-page, off-page factors, which is called SEO. And ultimately, you see your search results. Ready? That's what we've kind of covered till this point.